If you would like to support the channel, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. More information in the description below. The witch, Freya, had few comforts left. She was trapped in Midgard, rejected by her son for the spell she cast upon him, stripped of her Valkyrie wings and her fighting spirit. Fewer yet were the friends she had, and one of them just got shot with an arrow by a boy. Hildisvini, her advisor and confidant, cursed to remain in this form, is on death's door because a boy needed target practice. Like Brock, she has no fear of these two. Her words are meant to sting. They've done something callous and poorly thought through. They knew that there was something special about this beast, yet they still hunted it. They still shot at it. And to what end? Under her order, they field-stitch the apparent boar's internal bleeding, and Kratos carries it through the woods. The Spartan god of war is now aiding in saving the life of a pig. Who would have thought? The witch's home is well protected, hidden away from Midgard, much like the Wildwoods were. Atreus and the witch immediately strike up a conversation, talking about his bow, then his mother, the reason for their journey, which Kratos disapproves of. They don't know this woman, and they have no reason to trust her. She could still potentially be a foe. Atreus hasn't had a lot of socializing in his life, though, and this witch's house is under a massive turtle named Charlie. It's no wonder he would be excited to talk to her and make a friend. She uses her magics to stabilize Hildisvini, turns Atreus' attention towards something else, and reads Kratos like a book. She knows he's a god. She knows Atreus isn't aware of it. She lays things out very plainly for him. He is a foreign god in a realm that will be hostile to both him and his son. But by concealing Atreus' true nature, it puts them both at risk. She knows that it's not her place to worry about it, though. It's between Kratos and Atreus. She sends him out flower picking to end their conversation. Once the boar is resting and their business concluded, the witch gives them both a mark that will keep them hidden from the Aesir during their travels. I mean, imagine if Odin got a wild hair and the behemoth Thor managed to find them at this point. Best to keep these two hidden. She allows them passage out of the forest via her underground cavern, allows them to use her boat, gives them a compass, and when the boy asks if they'll see her again, she promises that they will, as much or as little as he would like. The witch's boat carries them straight out onto the Lake of the Nine, and while they chat, Kratos asks if Faye ever told Atreus about a god that couldn't feel pain. And he knows right away, Baldur, son of Odin and Frigg. It's not a lot of information, but at least Kratos knows more about this Aesir god than they do about him. All about the lake is what looks to be rubble, remnants of statues and buildings that have fallen to time. One such statue has runes upon its chest, written in the yellow paint of Faye. Another step she had taken to help them on their way before her death. Its directions: to chuck a weapon into the center of the lake, which in their case would mean the Leviathan axe. The wind-up, the pitch, and then the recall, but the axe doesn't come back. Instead, the waters turn turbulent, its levels bounding about, and the mountains in the distance seem to move in response. They're able to avoid capsizing as the waves thrash and then ultimately drop, but just barely. From the mist about the lake, the namesake of the Leviathan axe appears, the world serpent Jormungandr. He is the last giant of Midgard, his story a mystery to all beyond Jotunheim. One fateful day, George just appeared, dropped into the lake. This arrival flooded the valley and drove human life away. No one knew it, but he had come from the future, from a grand battle where he had been hit so hard that he was sent back in time. But we'll tell that story later. For now, the world serpent, while terrifying to behold, seems to greet them, but not even Atreus can understand his words. Kratos relaxes a bit when Atreus assures him that Faye had said the world serpent was friendly. It's clear they won't be able to communicate, so Jormungandr goes to rest on the literal mountain range. With his withdrawal from the lake, the Temple of Tyr is revealed. Jormungandr had been protecting it all these years from the Aesir, keeping it safe for the events that he knew would come to pass. The bridge leading out of the temple center seems to be the path that they'll need to take to reach the mountain's summit. They're already so close to their goal. This might be a quick journey for them. Also quick is the dwarf Brock. He has already arrived at the once sunken temple, and he's set up shop inside. He greets them as only Brock can greet a friend, and ushers them in with the promise of a surprise. Brock gifts to them the key of Yggdrasil, which will open mystic doorways directly onto the branches of the World Tree. Essentially, it's fast travel between great distances. Remember, Brock helped craft Mjolnir, and though he is rough around the edges, he wants to see the damages caused by the Aesir gods stopped. He wants Thor to be stopped, and if Laufey trusted this guy, then he will too. Their path takes them through an old, semi-defunct tower around the temple, long since abandoned since the vanishing of Tyr and the appearance of the World Serpent, now infested with the monsters and beasts of Midgard. Tyr's temple and the towers of the realms were once a cherished treasure, a gift of ingenuity from a beloved god of war. But now the state of it all, it's rather sad. At the foothills of the Great Mountain, they find another dwarf, and initially Kratos is extremely rude about it. He's of no consequence. This is Sindri, brother of Brock, co-creator of Mjolnir and the Leviathan axe, and he is definitely a being of consequence, whether they realize it or not. He recognizes Kratos' weapon and he boldly confronts him about it, asking where he got it from. It wasn't made for this man, and Sindri won't step aside. He was friends with Laufey, and if this guy did something to her, then he will throw hands. Atreus tells the dwarf that it belonged to his mother, that she has passed away, and it quite breaks Sindri's heart. He laments Faye's passing with words of her strength as a warrior, and then promises that he will make improvements to the axe and undo the shoddy work that his brother clearly did. Spotting the other half of the brand confirms that he's telling the truth, and Kratos, in a major asshole-ish way, agrees to let Sindri work on the axe. Atreus immediately likes Sindri, but Kratos is, well, he's just Kratos. Sindri doesn't push back like Brock does, so the Spartan kind of walks all over him with glaringly unnecessary attitude. Sindri clearly has an issue with germs and filth. He has an impulsive need for cleanliness, which Kratos doesn't respect. But Sindri proves himself to be the better of the two by not making demands and working through his phobia to honor Faye and his promise to improve the axe. Like Brock, Sindri will appear throughout the realms with his shop to offer his services and his aid. And he too will show himself to be a good, dependable friend. At about the halfway point up the foothills, the duo run into a problem. There is a dense black fog of some sort blocking their path. Atreus wishes aloud that the witch from the woods was there to help them, and guess who shows up upon request? She says that not even her power can dispel this black breath. It's a creation of Odin. Only a pure light, that of Alfheim, can get them through it. And, you know what? She's gonna help him out. Kratos is still suspicious and untrusting, but the weight of Freya's unspoken mistakes are a burden upon her. She wants to do good, to somehow make amends for her choices. She sees a kindred spirit within Kratos, and she wants to help them succeed. Besides, it's hard to not like Atreus. Maybe he reminds her of Baldur when he was a boy. As the now trio walk, the witch tells them, or, well, mostly Atreus, about how Tyr's temple on the lake was a travel hub. She tells them about the World Serpent's very sudden appearance in Midgard long ago, the flooding of the lake, the stalemated battle between Jormungandr and Thor. Odin and Thor believe that the World Serpent and the God of Thunder will kill each other during Ragnarok. It's a part of the false prophecy that Groa gave to the Aesir king before he murdered her. Freya shows Atreus how she can activate magical elven bridges with her bowstring because it was bathed in the light of Alfheim. She tells them about how active the roads were long ago before Tyr vanished and Jormungandr appeared. She teaches Kratos how to repair the mechanisms of the bridge that had been dislocated. Then within the temple itself, after she has dispelled the last of the magic in her bowstring, she gives it to Atreus with directions to bathe the bowstring in the light of Alfheim to recharge it. And then he too can activate the bridges of light. And as for Kratos, she also has a gift, a Bifrost, a device which will allow him to activate the gates to other realms. When put into the light of Alfheim, it will carry it within like a lantern. All this knowledge and all these gifts she provides, asking nothing in return. Freya just wants to see them succeed. As the temple awakens from its long slumber, she graces them with knowledge of the World Tree and its significance to all the life within the realms. The Temple of Tyr uses the Bifrost as a means to reach different parts of the tree, the overlapping realms. The creation of this temple was the last great collaboration between all the realms, before wars and conflicts broke the bonds of the realms. Atreus did notice that the tower to Jotunheim was missing from the lake, and the witch confesses that no one knows where it went. It vanished over 100 years ago, but what happened to it is a mystery still. Alfheim is stunning and rich. A beautiful realm that at first seems welcoming, yet the light of Alfheim has grown weak. It should be nearly consuming the sky with its strength, but from here it's barely even visible. The witch points to their destination. She intends to go with them, but only a few steps later, the terrible corrupted magic of Odin begins to pull Freya back to Midgard. He bound her to that realm after she tried to escape him, and even now that rope is tight. She quickly gives Kratos orders. Step into the light, but he must be careful of something. She's gone before her warning can be completed, though. They are on their own. There's a perpetual civil war taking place between the light and dark elves of this realm. The Vanir god Freyr was once an honored leader here. After Tyr vanished and Jormungandr appeared, the realms were effectively closed off to one another. Freyr no longer kept any semblance of peace between the elves, so they pushed and pulled against one another for control of the light in never-ending conflict. Had they set aside their war over the light, the elves of Alfheim may have found other ways to travel to the realms, but their own hostility and greed, it kept them isolated. Over 200 times has control over the light been shifted between them. The dark elves have current control over the light, and they attack them both on sight. Visitors have long been unwelcome in this realm. Atreus occasionally hears voices here, in the back of his mind, and one of them he swears is his mother's. When Atreus was little, Faye would sometimes take him hunting, and he could hear the emotions of animals from time to time, but as he's grown older, it's become stronger. He was never comfortable enough around his father to tell him, but he's so sure about what he's hearing that he even pushes back against Kratos when he tells him to let it go, that it's impossible that he's incorrect. As they see more of this civil war, the boy inquires as to the morality of what is taking place here, essentially who is the good guy. But good guy and bad guy, that's a matter of perspective, isn't it? And they, as outsiders, have no right to choose sides in another realm's war. Kratos doesn't really effectively communicate that to his son, however, so Atreus default views the current underdogs, the Light Elves, as the de facto good guys. The closer they get to the temple which holds the light, the more hive-like things become, as though the Dark Elves are insectoids that burrow. It's surprisingly gross. Their best way forward is to destroy the hive constructions around the building, destroy the supports, and bring it all down. But they're quickly found out once the infrastructure of the hive starts to crumble, and here is where they face their greatest resistance against the Dark Elves. They fight their way to the final support, killing dozens of Dark Elves on the narrow pathways. But the destruction of the hive gives them some time. Reinforcements and recovery won't be immediate, and they are already to the light. The Dark Elves were using their hive to literally hide away the light for themselves. With it no longer fully restrained, the temple springs back to life and rebuilds itself. Atreus can hear singing within the light now. He can hear his mother's voice. Touching it burns like fire, though. Kratos will go into the light, regardless of the pain. But to lessen the hurt and disappointment Atreus feels, Kratos gives him the Leviathan axe, with orders to only use it as a last resort, which of course he's extremely excited about. It fully takes his attention away from the light while his father turns into it. Going in is going to hurt like hell, but the witch's orders to go into the light were very clear. What wasn't relayed was what Kratos needed to be aware of once within. The light of Alfheim takes this god of war to a colorless recreation of the wild woods of his home. He hears Faye singing and his son speaking to her after she died. Kratos hears Atreus say that he knows his father doesn't want him. He wants his mother to come back. He doesn't want to be alone with his father. Kratos walks the path back to their house, and through the main door, he's led to a boat deck, where Atreus speaks more of his father. They don't know each other. Kratos doesn't know him, and Atreus believes that he doesn't want to. He wants his father to know that he's strong and that he's smart. Then upon the shores of the Lake of the Nine, Atreus' voice becomes angry. His father doesn't teach him. It should have been him that died, not Faye. Upon a cliff face, Atreus says that he loves his father. He just wishes that he was better. He knows that he can be. Back in his home in the Wildwoods, he sees Atreus standing over Faye's body, sees him speaking to her. He tells his mother that if Kratos will try, then he will too. He believes that Faye is out there somewhere, and he asks her to come back. Finally, upon a strange bridge, Kratos hears singing. He feels Faye is near. She's right there. He reaches out towards the light, believing his wife to be within, but a hand reaches through and pulls him out of the light, away from the singing of Faye. Atreus has been alone out here for a long time, far too long. He waited, and he's enraged at his father for not coming back. All alone, he had to fight. He killed dozens of dark elves himself. When his father wouldn't come back, he forced him out. He saved him. To Kratos, it was just a few minutes, and though the boy is clearly outraged, Kratos doesn't apologize or explain. They just resume their journey. He's claimed the light of Alfheim in the Bifrost. They can use it at the Temple of Tyr to go to other realms. It's time to leave. Like the witch said to do, He imbues Atreus' bow with the light, and slowly they leave the temple behind. The boy is clearly angry. He's talking back, muttering under his breath, calling things stupid. As they leave, light elves enter. It's now their time to resume control over the light, thanks to the meddling of these outsiders. The light elves act neutral towards them, ignoring them as they walk by. The dark elves that remain still attack on sight, culminating into their king trying to kill them. But with his dying words, the king of the dark elves tells them that they have made a grave mistake. But what that means isn't clear. It's enough to make Atreus question himself. Maybe they did the wrong thing in fighting them. Their final stretch here devolves into outright arguing between them. For being so different, they're both extremely hard-headed and stubborn. The boy asks if his mother was in the light, to which Kratos coldly says no, prompting the child to quite unnecessarily accuse him of not even caring. Finally, Kratos tells Atreus that his silence does not mean he doesn't grieve. He's mourning Faye in his own way. Atreus needs to leave it alone, which the child does understand. Kratos acknowledging his own sadness was enough, so he apologizes, and Kratos forgives. Atreus doesn't know his ways. How could he? So Kratos opens up a bit. He tells Atreus that he knows this has been difficult for him, and while he was in the light, he really only thought that he was gone for a few minutes. He didn't mean to leave Atreus alone. And that's all it took. They're okay with each other now. They understand each other a bit better. The boy is back to being focused on their journey. Kratos tells him bits about his mother as they go, stories of her past as a warrior and how she got the Leviathan axe. Atreus opens up about hearing the voices and the thoughts of animals. He promises to tell Kratos every time it happens. They're making progress. It is a peaceful trip back to Midgard. With the Bifrost filled with the light of Alfheim, they can make it through that dank black fog on the mountain. They share updates with Brock about meeting his brother, and then they get on the road, and just as the witch said it would, the light protects them. As they fight, trek, solve, and climb their way through the mountain, they do some talking. Atreus tells him what he knows of the giants, Kratos grunts. They're slowly making connections. Reaching the summit requires that they go through a massive cave system. They have to navigate their way through a mine, and then they go up a cavern with nothing holding them but a two-pronged claw, and that claw quite often collides with rock. And to add to the peril, it plays host to wave battles during the ascent. It's not just Draugr, trolls, and ogres that inhabit this place. A massive dragon called Raislir is king of this mountain. It is a creature of instinct and violence. Centuries ago, these creatures were hunted to near extinction in a grand culling, but since that time, not another one has been killed. There are only a few dragons left, and it's unfortunate that the temperament of Raislir makes him a foe. After taking a hard hit from the crane, the dragon retreats out of the mountain. This round went to Kratos and Atreus. Not that the dragon cares, it just took one hell of a punch. The sounds of screaming greet them when they finally reach their exit. It's the dwarf Sindri. His ability to phase between realms didn't hide him from Raislir's sight, and screaming isn't the most clandestine of tactics. Atreus, of course, wants to save him. There's no question about it in his mind. They have to help Sindri. And Kratos doesn't say no, grunt, or argue. Instead, they immediately devise a plan, playing to their strengths. Atreus keeps the dragon's attention so that his father can run up a mountain path to surprise attack it. It goes seamlessly until the dragon pulls them into the combat field. They won't be able to sneak away, and as a mother of lizards, I don't care to dwell on this sequence. Kratos manages to kill one of the last dragons of Midgard after one hell of a showdown, gaining the approval of his son and saving the life of Sindri. The dwarf is ever grateful for their help, and as compensation for their efforts, he gifts to Atreus braided mistletoe arrows, and then, via a dragon's tooth that he magically enhances, he imbues his bowstring with lightning, taking his battle utility to shocking new heights. After what's felt like hours of climbing, they finally reach the top. During their fight with Raislir, Atreus' quiver strap broke, and in his excitement, he ignored it. But before they take one more step, Kratos demands that he stops, and he doesn't yell or grunt or chastise, he teaches. Faulty equipment will slow him down, which in turn can put him in danger. It has to be tended to immediately. He repairs the strap using one of the mistletoe arrows. He passes on a good lesson, and they move on. The old Spartan is learning too. While climbing the last slope of the summit, they can hear voices atop it. One of them they recognize, the stranger that attacked the house, Baldur, son of Odin. And another of the voices identifies 2 more of them, the sons of Thor. The 3 of them are asking the apparent man in the tree where Kratos is. They know the big tattooed man is traveling with a child, but they can't find him because of the witch in the woods, her protective runes. One of the sons of Thor, Magni, calls the man in the tree the smartest man alive. Surely he would know where to find their targets. And Balder says that if he helps them, then he'll talk to Odin and help him out, which the man in the tree knows isn't true. Balder has nothing to offer him, and he's not shy about telling him off. Well, enemy of my enemy, right? And they need to get to the top of the mountain, so when the coast is clear, they make the acquaintance of Mimir. Kratos has a private introduction with the supposed smartest man alive, and Mimir immediately knows who and what Kratos is. Well, for the most part, he doesn't really get the fine details. Mimir claims to know every corner, every dealing, every language, every battle fought of these lands. An ambassador to the gods, he can answer anything, he knows all. Except why the son of Odin is hunting these 2. Bit of a gap in his knowledge with that one. Mimir has been trapped here for 109 years. He was once an advisor to Odin, but Mimir tried to stop Odin's slaughter of the Jotnar, tried to broker peace, and the Aesir king believed Mimir to be a traitor, just like Tyr. Odin wrapped him in the branches of Yggdrasil and demanded that Mimir tell him how to open the last bridge to Jotunheim, but he just didn't know how. Odin returned every day to torture Mimir. Atreus tells his new friend of their mission to spread his mother's ashes, but Mimir tells him that if they want to do that, they're in the wrong place. The highest peak in all the realms isn't in Midgard, it's in Jotunheim, and the way there is closed because of a missing rune. For a moment, Kratos does falter and he questions Faye. This couldn't have been what she meant. But Faye was very clear about her wishes, the highest peak in all the realms. Mimir bids their meeting a stroke of good fortune. He's possibly the only man alive that could help them reach Jotunheim. But first, they need to kill him, lop off his head, and find someone to reanimate it with old magics. They do know of a witch in the woods. Maybe she can help? And even if it fails, Odin tortures Mimir every day. What's happening to him? It isn't living. Death is a favorable alternative, which Kratos absolutely understands. Before he takes the swing, Mimir beseeches Kratos to tell Atreus of his true nature, because the longer he waits, the more resentment there will be. Does he really value his privacy more than his son's well-being? Kratos doesn't argue or get upset. He lops off Mimir's head, ties it to his waist, and the 2 of them trek back to see the Witch of the Woods. The mystic gateways that Brock got them access to help with getting where they need to be quickly. Having to trek all the way back down the mountain on foot would have taken hours, and they've got a fresh head to deal with. Kratos doesn't really knock when they arrive, he just goes right on in. Though, if Charlie the giant turtle let him in, it's probably fine, right? Atreus is thrilled to see her again and asks if she can bring a head back to life. But her eyes are drawn to his new mistletoe arrows. She asks him where he got those and demands that he give them to her. She proclaims that they are wicked things, they must be destroyed. She burns the arrows and commands them to destroy any more that they find. She got very upset very quickly. I wonder why. But back to that head reviving request. The witch knows exactly who the head is and is shocked that Mimir requested her help before he was killed. She gives it a go because why not, right? Though she hasn't practiced the old magics in a very long time, it's like she knows exactly what to do. This doesn't really bring Mimir back to life, it reanimates him. He is still quite dead, yet he's the same old Mimir. And imagine the surprise of the smartest man alive when he discovers that the Witch of the Woods is the Vanir goddess Freya. She absolutely holds a grudge against Mimir for convincing her to marry Odin, but her desire to help Kratos and Atreus is stronger than that loathing. There will be consequences for this though. Odin will be none too pleased that his favorite punching bag is dead. Kratos is quite upset about Freya keeping secrets about being a god. He's kind of a hypocrite about it. And she immediately flips it back on him, so he huffs out like a bit of a drama queen. With Mimir reanimated, now they can get to the nitty-gritty. He orders them back to Tyr's temple at the Lake of the Nine. He knows how to speak with the world serpent. In fact, he's quite the conversationalist. Jormungandr is a delight to talk to. And as a giant, George is potentially the only creature in Midgard who could know how to unlock that bridge. Ever the spectacle, the world serpent responds when the horn on the temple is blown. Awakening from his nap and seeing a statue of Thor in the bay isn't going to fly with him. Before he settles in for a chat, he eats part of the statue. I don't blame him for not wanting to look at the Aesir god who killed so many of his kin. Jormungandr remembers Mimir quite well, and the two have a short chat. Seems that in the ancient tongue of the giants, a lot is said in just a few words. Mimir tells George of the loss that these two have experienced, and the serpent fully understands. He will help them reach wherever they need to go. He gives Mimir directions and then physically pushes the bridge of the temple to another tower. They need that rune, of course, but also a magic chisel to carve it into the gateway. A bit to the north is the death site of a frost giant, who in life was called Thamur. Thamur was a truly massive and renowned stonemason who sought to build a wall around Jotunheim to protect the giants from the Aesir. He wished for his son Hrimthur to follow in his footsteps, but Hrimthur desired to live as a warrior instead. During a quarrel, Thamur hit his son with a hammer, causing Hrimthur to run away. Ashamed of his actions, Thamur ran into the night to find his son, but he soon found himself wandering Midgard alone and lost. Thor found Thamur and he murdered him. He hit the giant so hard with Mjolnir that he fell upon his own chisel. It went straight through his head. To add to the tragedy, when Thamur fell, he landed on a village that worshipped a Vanir god. Thamur's final breath brought never-ending winter to this region. The tip of Thamur's chisel is embedded through a huge sheet of ice. To reach it, they're going to have to break through that ice somehow. That would require using something absolutely massive. Mimir doubts that even Thor's hammer could break this ice. But compared to the hammer of Thamur, Mjolnir is baby-sized. They free it from the frozen strap still on the corpse, give it a good hard push, and let gravity do the work for them. Dangerous as hell, but it works. And it's probably the most fun Atreus has had since this journey started. A commotion that massive draws attention, though. As they climb through the ravine towards the chisel tip, they can hear the sons of Thor, Magni and Modi, bickering about the hammer and where their targets are. They move on from the area, but that doesn't mean that they're leaving. The Spartan and the boy tread through the rubble of this once village, but they can still hear Magni and Modi's bickering from time to time in the distance. They do reach the chisel and try to make it out without the sons of Thor noticing, but that would be much too simple, wouldn't it? Magni, the older, softer-spoken, and more dangerous of the two, finds them first and makes their intentions quite clear. Though the sons of Thor have different mothers, they share their father's cruel streak. They were raised under the influences of both Odin and Thor. They hardly stood a chance. It turned them into monstrous beings, second-generation attack dogs for their Aesir king. They both engage Kratos in the fight. Should the Spartan die, they will take Atreus back to Asgard, give him to the Allfather, let him decide what will become of this little god. While Magni is more focused on the fight and enjoying the challenge, Modi uses insults and petty commentary to promote his own viciousness. Modi grew up in Magni's shadow, and though there is clearly brotherly camaraderie between them, he always resented that Magni was favored by Thor. Modi's taunting works on Atreus, pushing him into angry fits, pushing him to yell back at him. It is very clear that Magni and Modi have spent most of their lives training together. Their tactics, their violence, they perfectly complement each other. When one lacks, the other one steps in. Though they bicker and fight as brothers, while in combat, they are focused and in sync. Of the gods that battle in this arena, it is Magni, the mighty and favored son of Thor, who falls. And Modi is horrified at the brutality of it, that it could even happen. He's at a nigh loss for words and he stumbles back away from them in what seems to be fear. This man, he killed Magni. Modi is completely in shock. Atreus keeps shooting at the defeated god, even as he tries to run away. The intensity of the experience, the viciousness of the fight, watching the brutal slaying of an Aesir, it pushes Atreus farther than any battle before. His cough returns and he starts to burn with fever. He needs to start controlling the dormant powers within him. The longer Kratos keeps the truth away from him, the worse it will be. Yet the boy insists that he's fine. He doesn't want to acknowledge it because what if that makes him weak in his father's eyes? Kratos removes a piece of Thamur's chisel, and they start the trek back to the Temple of Tyr. There are consequences to killing a god. It's debatable if the Aesir king would take genuine offense to such a thing, but Thor, Magni's father, that may be a whole other apocalypse rolling down the mountain when he finds out. Mimir guides them to where they may find Tyr's hidden vaults. The World Serpent had told Mimir to go here, to delve into the depths once kept safe by the flooded lake, and to search out the rune there. Atreus offers to teach his father runes, the basics of reading. Since he's learned so much from Kratos, he wants to give him something back. It's very sweet. But the smell of rain distracts them. The dripping of water, and then the crash of lightning. Modi has followed them here, and he won't let the stranger up. If he returns to Asgard defeated, he will face the wrath of his family. He'll be a laughingstock, always second best to Magni, who died valiantly in battle, who earned his way to Valhalla. The whiplash intensity of Modi's ambush pushes the already sickly Atreus into a rage, one that he cannot control. It consumes him completely and drops him. Kratos slowly begins taking steps towards Thor's son. It's like watching death approach. Modi is terrified, but is he more frightened of this being before him or his father? He's left with no choice. He has to once again flee. He cannot best this man. He has to go back to Asgard. He has to face his kin. As Modi runs, he weeps in fear. He knows what's awaiting him at home. As for Atreus, he's nigh at death's door, consumed by illness. His only hope is going to be Freya. While Kratos travels back to her home, Mimir tries to comfort and give counsel. He doesn't spin tales or tell stories. He remains positive and insightful as to what could be happening with Atreus. A conflict of the mind manifesting as a physical illness, but on a godly level. En route to her home, someone calls the World Serpent. Someone who wouldn't be attacked on sight. Someone who would have reason and ability to speak with Jormungandr, but who? The World Serpent would try to tear Odin and his kin apart, so who blew the horn? The lift up to the forest feels like it takes a lifetime in a situation where every moment counts. And like a worried, helpless father, Kratos paces and he rushes. When he reaches Freya's door, he's lost his self-control. He yells for her, he kicks the door, says that he needs help. She doesn't realize the seriousness of it and she makes a joke, but Kratos screams that the boy needs help. She knows what's happening within the child. It will be a complex matter to stabilize him. Kratos knows that this illness, it's his fault, but to see the depths of it, how deadly serious it's become, it humbles the Spartan. He asks Freya outright if she will help him. Freya would do anything for Atreus. Of course she will aid them. She orders him to travel to Helheim to obtain a rare ingredient there, the heart of the keeper of the Bridge of the Damned. Helheim is a place of unyielding cold, where no flame can be lit. His axe will be useless in that place against its denizens and monstrosities. He'll need to find another weapon to bring down the Keeper. He knows what will be needed. Kratos has spent decades, centuries, most of his life running away from his past, trying to hide it, deny it, be freed from it. But to save his future, he has to return home and claim his tools of war. He has to embrace a part of what he once was. Freya gives him the rune to Helheim and her boat. It will take him back to the Wildwood, where he can reclaim whatever it is that he left behind. The two make peace with one another before he departs. Their spat from before set aside and forgiven. She promises him that Atreus will be safe with her. Kratos departs without his son at his side. Mimir is still with him to provide counsel and insights, but nothing could soften the impact of what he knows he has to do. As he journeys up the river, the past creeps back into the god of war. The one who torments him the most is his half-sister, Athena. Once she was his guide, his helper, sometimes his moral balance, and his opposition when his bloodlust towards the gods of Greece were all-consuming. He had run her through, watched her die, and then felt the weight of his deeds when her soul too was corrupted by the greed which infected the Olympian gods. And in the end, she demanded his life be sacrificed, the powers within Pandora's box given to her, so that she might be the new queen of the Pantheon. It was a demand that he denied her. Her fate was his fault. So long ago, yet the sins of his past still remain. The end of the river leads him on to a familiar trail within the wild woods. Home isn't far. He runs through the forest as a crimson chaotic sky brews. In his absence, Hellwalkers have started stalking around the house, targets to take his rage out on. But such distractions are temporary. He must go into the house, a place once of safety and happiness for him. Under the floorboards, it's been waiting for him never too far away, those terrible weapons, the Blades of Chaos. As he wraps its chains around his forearms where they clearly belong, he's once again tormented by Athena and the words she surely would say to him. She doesn't need to be here for him to know what would be said of and to him, because they're the precise things that he thinks of himself. The Spartan can run, pretend to be a man that he never really could be. It changes nothing, because he cannot change. He may be a monster, but at least now he can or could say to the goddess, he's no longer her monster. He's no longer the pawn of a pantheon corrupted by greed and fear. He has a choice and autonomy, and right now, he's choosing to go to hell. As Mimir and the god travel, Kratos doesn't have a lot to say, though the offer for counsel is always on the table. Through the mystic gateway, back to Tyr's temple, Brock jumps and intercepts Kratos. He can smell the foreign magic on him. The blades absolutely captivate Brock. He was part of the creation of Mjolnir and the axe. He knows that there's something special about these weapons. Surprisingly, when Brock asks where the boy is, Kratos answers. He even tells Brock that what happened was his own fault and he's trying to make it right. He's moving past grunting and secrets. Dare one say, Kratos is making friends. He doesn't want Brock to go along, but Kratos tells him where he is going, and the blacksmith promises that he will be keeping an eye on him. Kratos sets the temple to Helheim, the bridge shifts, they move to another branch of Yggdrasil, and when he exits the chamber, Brock is right there, working away, again promising that he'll be watching his back, like a true bro. Mimir warns that not even Odin could survive this cold. Their time here is limited. They need to get that heart and then vacate this realm. Because of the intense cold, the only thing that can harm the creatures here are the fiery blades or blunt force. The Leviathan axe is nigh useless. Beyond the temple bridge, before the gates of Helheim, are far too many souls. None are being allowed in. Hell is full. With all the Valkyries to take those worthy to Valhalla, there are none to sort through the horde. As they go, Mimir tells Kratos a bit about this part of the world's underworld. It's far different from the Hades of his Greek homeland, and the Elysium Kratos knew seems far more peaceful than the Norse Valhalla. Only those who die in battle are granted entrance into Valhalla, where eternal combat and feasting are enjoyed. But if one didn't die during combat, if one died of old age, an accident, disease, then they were denied Valhalla. It surprises the Spartan that growing old is considered dishonorable. The quality of life lived doesn't matter, only the method of death. Once beyond the Bridge of the Damned, there is no return. That is a place they cannot go. The bridge itself is guarded by the one they seek, the Keeper. He stands watch to ensure that the dead crossing the bridge really are dead, and he uses the magical energies of Helheim itself to do so. Overseeing the entirety of the realm as a more neutral observer is the ruler of Helheim, Hraesvelgr, a mighty and enigmatic Jotun. The Keeper immediately moves to intercept Kratos, but she does not. Rather, Hraesvelgr sits upon her perch and simply watches the events unfold. Madugr Helson is a vicious fighter, perfectly suited to guard the Bridge of the Damned. If Kratos didn't have the Blades of Chaos, he would be stalemated against this troll of Helheim. Their battle and the death of the Keeper is a grand display of power. Even the Spartan god of war is exhausted by the end. But the death of Madugr Helson isn't the end. He needs its heart. Time for some mild dissection. We all did this in high school, right? With heart in hand, it's time to leave, but Helheim is so much more than it seems. The visage of Zeus takes form in the sky near Hraesvelgr and calls to him. Mimir questions who Kratos is looking at, and Kratos tells him the truth. He sees Zeus, his father. And of course, the smartest man alive knows who Zeus is, but he warns Kratos that whatever he's seeing, it's just an illusion. Zeus is not within Helheim. This place tortures its residents with pieces of their past. If it's starting to affect Kratos, then they need to leave this place immediately. Brock pops out from Midgard to help in this escape. Not many have gotten to carry the blades, but he lets Brock. The blacksmith realm shifts back to Midgard quickly, infuses the blades with the ability to carry the winds of hell, and returns them to Kratos in less than a minute. Once again, like a real bro. In no time at all, Mimir and Kratos are moving the bridge of the temple back to Midgard. Mimir very quickly pieces together that Kratos is the legendary ghost of Sparta. He knows the story of Kratos. He knows of the Pantheon, the events in ancient Greece, how that tragic story ended. Mimir holds no judgment against Kratos. He rather believes that the Pantheon had it coming to him. The Spartan tells Mimir that Atreus can never know of his past, and Mimir very strongly disagrees. The boy has to know, and furthermore, he should know. Atreus can feel Kratos' resentment for the gods, for himself. The child needs to understand that hatred, it doesn't include Atreus, and he needs to know sooner than later, because the longer Kratos waits, the more his son will feel that loathing. and one day Atreus will find out that he too is a god, and he will absolutely resent his father's hatred for those like him. Mimir, of course, promises that he won't tell Kratos' secrets, but he will strike an opposing stance if that means giving good counsel. Kratos does hear him, though. He does take it to heart. Brock improved the Mystic Gateways to allow two-way travel. They can quickly fast travel straight back to Freya's place with the heart. What a bro. They make the run back in relative silence, but once in Freya's home, there's relief that the boy is still living. The Vanir goddess immediately sets about creating medicine for him from the Keeper's heart. But this is only a temporary fix. Kratos knows that he needs to tell the boy. His only cure is knowledge. Freya tells him of her son, whom she hasn't seen in many years. She too sought to protect her son from something, in her case, a needless death. But she tells Kratos that what she did for herself without considering the harm that it would do to her boy. She put her fears before his needs, and the resentment it created was unfixable. She made a terrible mistake, and her son suffered for it. She asks Kratos to not repeat what she did. She asks him to have faith in his son. When the boy finally stirs from his fever, his first words to his father are asking him to not leave without him. He promises that he's better now and that it won't happen again. Freya gives her blessing that Atreus is well enough to travel, and the two part as respected friends. With all this worked out, it's finally time to get back to Tyr's temple. They were about to delve into its depths to search for that black room to Jotunheim. Atreus is being sullen and quiet. It's not a bad attitude, but rather he seems to have hurt feelings, or he's insecure. While his father prepares the boat, he asks the boy, why is he being quiet? Is he not better? He knows that he overheard words between him and Freya, so what is bothering him? Atreus says that he heard his father call him cursed. To the boy, this means that he's seen as weak, unwanted. But he thought that after all they had been through that maybe Kratos had changed his mind about him? Atreus believes this to be the reason behind his father's temperament. He just doesn't want him. This resentment and this self-hatred, it has to be stopped. Kratos finally tells Atreus the truth, that he is a god from a foreign land. He's tried to live a normal life since leaving his homelands, but the truth that Atreus was mistaken about is that his father is a god, and so he is too. The Spartan was expecting a reaction of some sort, perhaps an outburst of anger or hatred, judgment, something negative. But his son asks if this means, can he turn into an animal? Atreus is taken aback and awed by it. He's not upset or resentful. He asks why his dad didn't tell him sooner, and Kratos confesses that he'd hoped the boy wouldn't need to know, that he wouldn't be burdened by it. The life of a god can be one of pain and tragedy. That was the curse that he was speaking about. The boy ponders what sort of powers he has, but his father tells him that they'll know more in time. He doesn't know what Atreus is capable of either. As they go, Mimir joins the fun and educates them both a bit on the nature of godhood. Atreus has already shown extraordinary talents with languages, and each god is unique in their strengths. He may not grow big like his father, but Atreus will have his own set of skills. But soon after comes the first sign of trouble. We're gods. We can do whatever we want. And Kratos doesn't correct that sentiment. As they take the lift down into the depths of the temple, Atreus' newfound ego starts to present. I don't feel bad about killing the elves. They were in the way. We have god things to do, dragging us into their little problems. Kratos doesn't say anything about it, but Mimir does. He tries to tell the boy of Tyr, how he used his godly powers to serve others, to help others. Nothing was too small for Tyr, and he was beloved. He wished to stop wars, to usher peace rather than hold dominion or conquer, a rare example of a good god. He traveled the realms, shared his knowledge, sought perspectives unfamiliar to his own. It could have only been Tyr who aided the giants in sequestering Jotunheim. Without a doubt, had Tyr wished to overthrow Odin, it would have been a perfectly achievable venture. The black rune is clear to see within the depths of the vault, but reaching it is another matter. There are security measures in place to prevent it from just being picked up. They have to be deactivated one by one before the rune will be reachable. And the traps of Tyr are not to be taken lightly. One misstep would, at best, mean dismemberment. Within each room are countless treasures, gifts given to Tyr from all around the world and the 9 realms. It's all been left to collect dust and cobwebs, sorrowfully abandoned after Tyr disappeared. Each piece tells a story, represents an adventure or a victory. The boy happily runs around one of the vaults, looking at all the beautiful pieces. Kratos too is intrigued and even finds a flask of wine from his homeland. Of all the things that could be taken along, this is what he chooses. It's the only thing he wants. Amidst the collections of history here too is a vase depicting him, the god of war, when he was much younger and captured in the throes of conquest, the past that Kratos so desperately tried to escape, what he wanted to shield his son from. He breaks it rather than risk Atreus seeing it. The boy does spot a bit of the art on the vase though, but he doesn't push the topic beyond joking that his dad likes to smash pottery. Once past the many perils and traps of the temple's depths, the Black Rune is up for grabs. The boy notices that at some point, Freya's protective runes that kept them hidden from the Aesir are gone, which means trouble is inevitable, but that's something they'll handle when the time comes. Before he breaks the magic protecting the Black Rune, Kratos gifts his son a dagger. He had made 2 of them on the day Atreus was born, using the metals from his homeland and this one for himself and the other for Atreus when he was ready. The boy's other dagger, the one from Thay, had broken during the venture in a trap, and today Atreus has earned his dagger. And Kratos tries to teach him that being a god is a great responsibility, that he must be better than his father. He tells him to repeat it. He will be better than Kratos. A warrior isn't made with a strong body or a bloodlust, but of a tempered mind, and he must not forget that. When Kratos touches the Black Rune, it's blank. There's nothing on it. But when Atreus holds it, light shines through, revealing the secret missing rune to Jotunheim. The light enters into Atreus, and the Black Rune crumbles away. Atreus is now the only being in existence that knows the secrets of the bridge. There's one more big fight before they can leave the depths, but then the final stretch begins. On the lift ride out, Kratos shows off his find, that flask of wine from his homeland. He shares where it's from, near the place of his birth, lets Atreus read the words on it, and then offers him his first drink. It's probably a point of pride that it'll be Greek wine, and they get to share in it together. The boy questions why he left Sparta to come here. If it has to do with the gods there, why does he hate all the gods so much? Didn't Tyr prove that they can be good? And Kratos is good too, right? Because he only kills who deserves it. And reluctantly, Kratos says yes, but Mimir questions who exactly is worthy enough to judge that sort of thing. And for the first time, Atreus refers to Mimir as head and orders him to be quiet, that they, as gods, are worthy enough to judge. And Kratos allows it. As they go, Atreus continues his self-important, braggadocious talk. He wants to boast to others. After a lifetime of being sick, weak, being rejected by his father, he has power over others and a title. He lacks the self-control to govern it, and his dad isn't doing much to stop it either. When they meet Sindri once again, the blacksmith is his usual talkative self, willing to do business and help out. He tries to strike up a relatable conversation about complex family dynamics. But Atreus is extremely rude to him. Do something or shut up. Little people, little problems. The weather seems to churn to match the boy's turbulent attitude. There's no parental intervention, and it clearly hurts Sindri's feelings. But the blacksmith still offers to work on their gear. He won't lash out against the boy's hostilities. They have to take the long way back up the mountain to reach the summit, and Kratos does try to tell the boy that he was unkind to Sindri, but it doesn't really stick. The boy even speaks poorly of his own mother. She wasn't a god, so her probable feelings about his conduct don't matter. He asks Mimir questions about Odin's motivations, and when he doesn't get the answers he wants, he turns into a shitheel towards Mimir. Within a mountain cavern, they find Modi. Beaten, broken, his eyes are swollen and blackened, he can barely walk. He tells them that Thor, his father, blamed him for them killing Magni. It's unclear why Modi is here. To seek help? Answers? Maybe a death in combat? Did Thor order him to come back in this condition? Atreus is cruel to the clearly beaten god. There's no empathy within the child towards this, whereas once he may have taken pity on Modi's plight, tried to help him. Kratos tells Atreus a simple no. They will not murder this god. There's no honor in that. Yet Atreus argues that Modi should pay for talking badly about Faye. They're gods, they can do whatever they want. And Modi responds by goading this little god further with insults towards his mother. So, Atreus delivers a lethal blow and kicks Modi into a cavern. The wounds from his father and this child will be the assumed end of Modi, the last son of Thor and another of his victims. Atreus argues that he's just been doing what his father taught him. But this wasn't for survival, this was from anger. This was murder, and there are consequences to killing a god. There's no resolution or understanding with the conclusion of their fight, only an understanding that Atreus is evolving into something quite dangerous. Their conversations throughout the mountain are tense, and poor Mimir has to sit silent while the two bicker over morals, personal justifications, who's right or wrong. Atreus is acting entitled, pushing boundaries, saying hurtful things, talking poorly of his own mother, openly speaking of violence towards others, while his father makes demands of obedience and delivers half-storied lessons, all the while pushing them on, not stopping the journey to correct or confront his son's behavior. When they encounter Sindri at his shop, even he expresses fatigue towards them. By the time they reach the summit, things haven't improved, but at least it's the last leg. Atreus places the rune he learned from the black stone upon the tile, and Kratos traces it with the chisel. And with that, after 170 years of isolation, the bridge to Jotunheim is opened, to the highest peak in all the realms. But they're not the only ones that have been seeking this realm. Their protective runes have been gone for some time, and somebody has been following them. Baldur. When they first met, neither was prepared for the other. That's not the case now, however. Baldur ambushes and tries to pin Kratos to get the upper hand, and when ordered to flee to Jotunheim, Atreus ignores his father's command and starts shooting Baldur with arrows, screaming that he's a god too, as though that means he stands a chance against the son of Odin. Baldur knows that Kratos is not the giant that he seeks. The boy is the answer. Kratos is just the meat. If this god and Odin want into Jotunheim, they want to use his son, then the Spartan will destroy what they desire. Kratos throws Baldur against the rune, breaking the entire bridge down around them, ruining any chance either of them had to get into Jotunheim. Baldur and Atreus' outrage match the other. There's a clear conflict between the Spartan and the boy, which Baldur pushes on, just like Modi did. And again, Atreus is easily goaded into attacking. Baldur getting his hands on the boy would be disastrous. Kratos tries to stop him, but his son hits him where he was impaled, prompting his father to forcibly push him back, and the boy fires on his own father. All too easy. Taking control over him is so simple, literally like picking up a child. Atreus' outbursts have gained Baldur a lead, but without a second thought, Kratos throws himself from the highest peak of this realm to pursue the other god who now has his son. Their fight will begin on the back of a dragon, Baldur's personal transport from Asgard. While the location is unorthodox, the violence is just like their previous encounter. Neither can get the upper hand over the other. Kratos hits like a wrecking ball, but Baldur can't feel any of it and he just heals through the damage. And the nigh same goes for Kratos himself. They're at a perpetual stalemate, yet neither is willing to concede the fight as the winner takes the child. The deciding factor will be who lands in closest proximity to Atreus, and that finale will require exiting this vehicle. Surprisingly, it is Baldur who retains his footing while the Spartan is thrown to the wings of the dragon. He cuts through the wings to bring it down, limiting Baldur's ability to escape quickly. They land at Tyr's temple, Kratos on the bridge and Baldur atop it. When Kratos makes it through the temple, Brock demands to know who is activating the bridge. Baldur has set the destination for Asgard and assures Kratos that once that gateway opens, the full weight of that realm will come crashing down on him. So, Kratos puts the Bifrost in, with the doors wide open so that it opens to his previous destination with no safeguards to protect them from being sucked out of that door, and where better to be thrown wildly into than Helheim. If they land beyond the Bridge of the Damned, there will be no return for any of them. How quickly they all went from the highest peak of Midgard to the depths of hell. Kratos manages to take custody of Atreus, but where Baldur landed isn't clear. He could be anywhere. They are here because Atreus intervened, intruded upon, and usurped a battle that was not his. His carelessness and viciousness towards his own father caused this, and Kratos finally makes it very clear that Atreus' behavior is dishonorable at best, and it finally seems to sink in. He mopes at the chastisement, but his rebellion effectively ends when the gravity of being in Helheim sets in, and he is forced to face the reality of his choices. Helheim shows the boy himself at his worst moment, the murder of Modi. The boy tries to convince himself that he didn't do that, he wouldn't do that, but this isn't the place to reflect on choices. Helheim will torture and feed off of that negativity. There's absolutely no way to stop it. They need to leave this place. Partway through the journey, They come across another who is trapped within the torment of hell, Balder. He is being hurt with the memories of his mother, Freya, what she did to him, taking away his ability to feel, making him effectively invulnerable, but doing so against his will. She made the choice for him, something that he would have never wanted, and he loathed her for it. Kratos and Atreus see their confrontation and the emotional anguish Balder experienced at this betrayal. What Freya forced upon him was tragic and selfish. He even begged her to undo it, to take it away, but she couldn't. This broke their relationship completely. It was absolutely unmendable. Balder's anger turned murderous, and all this time later, here in Helheim, he regrets not killing Freya. He yells insults at his specter for not doing it, weeps at the memory of his loss, and abuses himself. Mimir discloses that he has no idea why he didn't mention Balder being Freya's son. He just didn't remember to. It slipped his mind for some reason. This is something that will need to be discussed, but again, they're in Helheim. Not exactly the best place to do that. Their plan for escape is to use a boat. Making it out of Helheim on foot this far into the realm would take far too long, if it was even possible. With a bit of ingenuity, Kratos is able to rig the sails and light fires to make the boat float. A smoking, flying boat attracts a lot of attention though, which turns their flight into a bit of a gauntlet, because nothing is ever easy, right? The ruler of Helheim, Hraesvelgr, never moves against them. Even when they draw close into her, she just watches from her perch, as though perfectly neutral and unconcerned as to what's happening in her realm. A single flap of her wing could devastate their ship, but she seems more interested in what's going on within the heart of Helheim. The ship faithfully carries them back to the bridge leading to the temple, but before departure, a familiar voice bellows down the ship. It's Kratos' turn to be tormented by his past. Though an illusion, it's a perfect recreation of long ago, back in Greece, when Kratos and Zeus fought. Atreus sees this too, his father repeatedly punching this old man. It seems merciless and brutal. The younger god is beating the older one into a pulp with his bare hands. The boy runs through it though, to tell his father that they have to go. They're about to run into the temple itself. Now the boy knows more of his father's past. He's seen a glimpse of the violence and brutality which consumed the Spartans centuries ago. He doesn't push or prod about it, and even if Kratos tried to talk to him about what he'd seen, Atreus would deny that he saw anything at all. They managed to find an old apparent study or storage area of Odin's, full of old scrolls and books. Here too is a panel from a giant shrine, torn out and stored here, but why? It depicts Tyr and other cultures' symbols of war, but the message is unclear, at least until the Bifrost eye of Mimir shines upon it. Tyr hid a clue within this panel, directions on the construction of a key. Odin knew that there was something concealed within this panel, but he could never figure it out. Only those trusted by the giants could reveal it, and now they have a new lead to reach Jotunheim. Who better to ask about the construction of a key than the dwarven blacksmiths? The trio return to the travel hub of the temple and get the hell out of that realm. Time to go back to Midgard. It has become apparent that something is quite amiss with Mimir. When asked about Balder, his relationship with Freya, or his vulnerability, Mimir completely loses track of his thought process. Something or someone has quite enchanted him into this state, but that someone did take the time and care to do this means that they were protecting something about Balder, which means he may not be completely invulnerable. Brock, ever ready at his shop, takes a gander at that key schematic they brought back from Helheim, and, in a most gracious manner, concedes that he doesn't produce such items. It's far too dainty and intricate, far from his specialization. That's something far better suited for Sindri to plan out, who happens to be nearby and pops out to converse with his brother about how such a key could be created. These two have been apart for a very long time. The guilt of creating Mjolnir took its toll on them, it tore them apart. Their bickering and fighting had turned into outright fistfights, and they decided to part ways. While nigh unsurpassed as craftsmen on their own, when together their work is legendary. Sindri has just the ore they need to make that key, and all past disputes are set aside. Seeing them work together is a delight, even if Brock can't go 2 sentences without vulgarity. In no time at all, the brothers have created a new key to a door. Someplace. Somewhere, probably. Atreus apologizes to Sindri for the way he spoke to him, but it's already forgiven. The Huldra brothers will now work their forges as a team to create upgrades, armor, and tools for the Spartan and the boy. Now to find the door that this key opens, it has to be somewhere around the temple. They find it on the outer ring, on the northeast lower segment of the temple. A big golden door with a giant keyhole just waiting to be filled. It takes them under the travel room, to a section of the temple that no one knew existed. It's a mirror of the room above, with the floor on the ceiling. Down here, there's something in front of the door to Jotunheim, except it's completely out of reach. Down a walkway, Kratos gets another perspective and sees that they can and need to physically flip the entire floor of the temple. All they gotta do is break the chains keeping it tethered down. Tyr really did love his traps, his obstacles, and his battle gauntlets, but it does its job. It keeps intruders out. It takes a long while to make it up the short hallway to reach each chain, but it ensures that only those who are supposed to be here succeed. Once the chains are broken, then it's just a matter of physically flipping the platform, which is a feat of brute force that few could accomplish. During their climb, the boy finally pieces together how they have succeeded, where Odin so often failed. Many beings came together to act as a team, not as individuals, not as tyrants, like he himself was becoming. It was through unity and collaboration that all of this was made possible, which was the test of Tyr. Had a single piece of their complex equation been missing, it wouldn't have worked, and finally it's led them here, to another secret. Tyr had locked away something called the Unity Stone. According to Mimir, this will take them to the realm between realms. If someone threw themselves off the path while traveling on the branches of Yggdrasil, they would die. But holding the Unity Stone while doing this, it would take them in between the realms. And they have a door that will take them straight onto the branches of the World Tree, those mystic gateways that Brock got them access to. Time for a leap of faith. What once would have disintegrated them is now completely harmless. They fall through the void around the World Tree and land on a quite safe branch, long separated from the trunk. Here is the long-lost Tower to Jotunheim, placed here by Tyr to deny Odin access to the realm. But to use it, it must be restored to its proper place, and that process itself is another safeguard. Once the Unity Stone is placed on a pedestal, it will take the tower through the accessible realms back to where it belongs in Midgard. And at each realm, hostile forces flood out to engage whoever is within this tower. Thankfully, there are no stops at Vanaheim, Svartalfheim, or Asgard. It's a tense enough gauntlet without the addition of dwarven artillery or pissed-off gods. The tower's final stop is a peaceful landing in Midgard, back where it belongs. They can now access Jotunheim from the realm travel room within Tyr's temple. But again, Tyr doesn't make anything easy. They ignite the travel bridge, but there's no travel crystal. It's like turning on a car with no wheels. They can't actually move to the realm. Mimir theorizes that Tyr was able to reach Jotunheim by using his Bifrost eyes to lock in the bridge, the same kind that Mimir has. Or rather, eye that Mimir has. Odin plucked one of them out and hid it away. It could be anywhere. But to get to Jotunheim, they have to have that eye. Their best bet is to ask Brock and Sindri, because they're the only ones that Mimir ever saw on the mountain. They're the only ones that could even fathom a reasonable guess as to where that missing eye could be. Sindri regales that once upon a time, Odin did ask him to build a statue with a hidden compartment in it, but he declined to do so. He's a blacksmith, not a stonemason. Odin had to ask the same of Brock, and in far more vulgar terms and with less gagging, he too declined. But soon after Odin's request, that statue of Thor showed up on the lake. The statue of Thor that Jormungandr got angry at and decided to eat. Well, ever eager for a good conversation and to help out, George responds to the toot of his horn outside the temple and starts chatting with Mimir about their goings-ons. The world serpent thinks that the statue is probably still in his belly, and he's willing to let them go in and take a look, because Jormungandr is the best boy in all of Midgard and, like Brock, a real bro. It's surprisingly not awful within the world serpent. Mimir comments that it smells like fermenting ale, not a bad smell at all. They track down that statue, mostly still intact, deep in Jormungandr's belly, and sure enough, still hidden within a chest is Mimir's second eye. They can finally open the bridge to Jotunheim, and Mimir has depth perception again. The belly of a serpent isn't really a good place to hang out or explore, and staying longer than necessary could also be a bit rude. During their exit, the snake violently jerks enough that it rocks their boat and threatens to topple it. Something is hurting Jormungandr, something is wrong. Eventually, groans from the world serpent accompany the growing turbulence, and the three are safely ejected from the mob before Jormungandr falls onto a hillside. He's not dead, but something knocked the air out of the snake. The commotion of an attack on the world serpent has drawn out Freya. Knowing she's the mother of Baldur brings her alliance with them into question. If she knew that they were in violent conflict with her son, how would she react? Whose side would she choose? She's been out searching for her son. She knows that he's in Midgard and she wants to speak with him. Atreus' trepidation towards her is impossible to miss. He once greeted her with hugs and questions, and now he keeps his distance. The son of Kratos is the least of her concerns, however, because her own son makes his presence known. Baldur attacked Jormungandr to bring them out into the open. He wants vengeance for the destruction of the bridge to Jotunheim on the summit peak. To him, that was his key to being freed from his mother's spell. Odin had promised him that he would fix it if they could get to Jotunheim. Kratos destroyed that supposed chance. Baldur was not expecting his mother to be here, though. It's been over a century since they last saw each other, but that lifetime hasn't lessened Baldur's hatred in the least. He's hated her more every day since they last met. She tries to tell him how he feels, and he slaps back in pure contempt. She has no idea what he's experienced, and he can't feel anything thanks to her. He doesn't want to mend anything between them. He doesn't need her to understand anything that he's been through. He just wants to kill her. The Spartan doesn't ask consent to intervene. He forcibly puts himself in front of Baldur and tells him that walking this path will not give him peace. There's no reasoning with this level of anger. Baldur doesn't know this man. He has no reason to respect his words. Kratos can't save him from this curse, so why does he care about what he has to say? The two of them once again begin to brawl. Baldur was raised in the shadows of Odin. After his mother's betrayal, after she fled Asgard to go back to Vanaheim, a spirit of rage grew within him. If he wasn't monstrous before, he became so after Freya. With only Odin and possibly Thor to govern him, this is what he grew into. And it did not have to be so. Had he been allowed to live a normal life with Freya as his guidance, he may have been a far different god. As they fight, Freya intervenes on her son's behalf, convinced that she can reach him, she can change his heart, even if it means putting the Spartan and the boy in Calamity's way. Baldur lands a punch square into the chest of Atreus, a massive hit that would kill even a normal man. But do you remember when Atreus' quiver strap broke, when they first went to the summit, right before they met Mimir? His father fixed it with one of his arrows, one of the mistletoe arrows, the arrows that Freya had become enraged over and burned. Baldur impales it through his hand. This is the secret to the undoing of Freya's spell, the one weakness of her enchantment, and her closest guarded secret. It was the reason Mimir could never quite remember much about Baldur and Freya, so the secret could never be betrayed. He can finally feel aches and pains, feel the cold around him, taste the wind, and smell the world. It's all he's wanted for over 100 years. And here, Baldur has a choice, whether he realizes it or not. Abandon his campaign of vengeance and resume life as an Aesir, or push his aggressions against this foreign god so that he can kill his mother. And Baldur chooses violence. Freya tries to intervene to force them to stop. She reanimates the corpse of Thamur and moves the father and son up the mountain, away from Baldur. She is still convinced that she can stop her son. But he follows them, refuting that possibility with promises that he will not be stopped. Their next round features further intrusion from Freya, using the corpse of the frost giant. Her core intention is to prevent Baldur's death, even if that means her own. That prophecy still haunts her, and now that the safeguard against it is gone, her son can absolutely be killed. Baldur celebrates feeling pain, feeling every hit. He cherishes every punch that he gets to throw. He can't help but laugh with joy when struck by Kratos' weapons. He takes the wounds, heals through them, and then he goes back for more. Their fight is a long and painful one. The longer it goes on, the more apparent Baldur's powers become. He truly is a powerhouse of speed and strength. But too, he has elemental affinities at his disposal that shield him from certain damage types. He also has a mother that just can't stop herself from trying to control what is happening. Her interferences push Baldur's outrage higher and higher, to the point that he abandons his fight with Kratos to pursue her instead. It takes the Spartan and Atreus working together to get his attention back and away from her, much to her protests. She uses the corpse of Thamur to intervene when Kratos gets the upper hand, seeing the consequences of such a thing worth it if it means saving Baldur. As Mimir had said before, Atreus' ability to understand languages is remarkable. He is able to call out to Jormungandr in the ancient Jotun tongue for aid, and the world serpent quickly responds. He bites the head of the dead giant, removing Freya's behemoth from the fight and pushing them all back to where the fight first began. Balder is out of fuel. He has been beaten. Kratos has won this long-fought fight. Freya tells the Spartan to leave her son be, and Atreus decides that, yes, Balder is done. He's no longer a threat. Kratos tells the Aesir that he will not attack them again, and he will not hurt Freya. Those are the conditions of his surrender, and then he releases him. There is still a chance for Balder. He doesn't need to die. Balder doesn't have to forgive Freya or make amends here, but he may not murder. That is too much to ask of him, though. He can't move past his need for vengeance and his hatred for Freya. What she did to him was too great a sin, and in their 120 years apart, not an ounce of grace or mercy has been taught to the son of Odin. Freya argues that she was just trying to protect him, to do what was best for him. Rather than ask forgiveness or admit her wrongs, she tries to just move past it immediately into reconciliation, and Balder rejects it. His mother needs to pay for a lifetime stolen from him. She insists that she already has, but offers that if her death will make him happy, then she will allow it. It's an offer that Balder takes. He begins to slowly strangle his mother to death. The hatred, abuse, greed, and fear that Kratos thrived in was not unique to Greece. It is alive and well in these northern lands, and it will consume everything in the end. This is not the world that he wants for his son, nor is it the future that Faye fought for. He pulls Balder away from Freya, and he ends the cycle, breaking Balder's neck, ending his life. Freya had called Balder her greatest gift from Odin before his cruelty began. Protecting him from a needless death consumed her, but in the end, she lost him too. Odin took Vanaheim from her, her Valkyries, her ability to fight back. He trapped her in Midgard. Balder was one of her only hopes left. If Balder lived, there was still a chance for things to be made right, but now it's gone. And her part in this will be haunting. She would rather have died, but Kratos denied her wishes. She knows who the ghost of Sparta is. He's an animal that will never change. She wonders, does Atreus know the truth of his father's sins? Kratos tells his son what made him who he is. His deal with a god that cost him his soul, his rampage through a pantheon that ended with him killing his own father. And his son asks him if this is how it's always destined to end, with children killing their parents. Is this what it is to be a god? But the god of war tells the child that they will be who they choose to be, not what came before. They must be better. Freya carries her dead son away, the pinnacle of the cycle and the pain that it brings, cut short in a horrific display. She promised to make Kratos suffer for what he'd done. It's a vow she intends to keep. It's time for this to end. The bridge to Jotunheim is free for them to use. The Aesir will not be interfering. Their original goal remains the same: travel to the highest peak in all the realms. Mimir's eyes are able to lock in their destination, just like Tyr's did once upon a time. This realm was closed off for 170 years, and for the second time in just a day or so, it's open again. Mimir asks them to leave him behind. This should be a private affair. It wouldn't be proper for him to tag along. Brock and Sindri snuck their way into the travel room to see the opening of the gate. They've carried a lot of guilt over what happened to the giants. Seeing the road open again is touching, and they volunteer to, take care of Mimir. Brock has big plans for him, which sounds more threatening than anything else. The bridge to Jotunheim is covered in cascading golden light, and at the end they're taken directly to the highest peak in all the realms. This is the homeland of his wife, and after the grand journey to get here, Kratos no longer feels the need to hide his scars or his past. He kept the marks of the blades hidden, but that time is over, and he gives to his son the ashes of Faye. Atreus will carry her the rest of the way. The silence here feels strange. This seems like a place where they would hear voices, see giants, but there's nothing but the wind. Within a grand chamber, relics and works of the past greet them. This place had been made ready for them. There are things here that they need to see. Atreus learns more of their language, reads bits about Odin and Thor, ponders aloud who the guardian of the Jotnar is and what that means, and when he touches the wall of the cavern, stone slips away to reveal stories and prophecies of the giants. The pictures tell them about Laufey, the boy's mother, being here in Jotunheim, speaking to the giants. These walls are why Laufey ordered them to bring her ashes here. They're the prophecies of the journey Atreus just took, meeting the world serpent, fighting the dragon in the mountain, finding the chisel of the stonemason, fighting Balder. Kratos didn't know that Faye was a giant, but finally he knows some of her secrets. She did this for them. All she did before her death was to prepare and guide them to this place. The hardship they encountered was a part of their growth and their trials. It readied them for these truths and the weight of responsibility. Atreus is part god, part giant. He will be mighty. His role in prophecy demands that he is. She couldn't just tell them what they were and what they had to be. They had to do it themselves. The final image that Kratos sees is of his son, holding the body of a father, their soul leaving their dying body. He believes this to be him, his own death. But as he has said before, if his death means Atreus survives, then he would welcome it. The top of the peak isn't far away, just up a trail. The yellow handprints of Faye welcome them to this journey's end. It's a comfort knowing that she was there the whole time. The bodies of the Jotnar are strewn about the mountains and valleys of this realm. Their souls were whispered away for safekeeping, and their bodies were kept here to deceive Odin should he ever make it into Jotunheim. Though it looks tragic, there was a hope with this plan, that one day the giants could return, should the madness of Odin and the threat of the Aesir be ended, that is. Together, as was ordered of them, they spread the ashes of Laufey the Just upon her homeland. A good end to a hard journey, and their final farewell to a remarkable woman. They don't stay for long. With the giants apparently dead, there's nothing for them here, and they still have a home in Midgard. It's time to return to it. Atreus learned from the writings on the walls that his mother called him Loki to her people. It was a name that she had wanted to give him, but they instead called him Atreus. It's another mystery that they'll have to ponder over together. As they walk, Kratos tells him of the origins of his Spartan name, of his friend and warrior Atreus. Looks like the boy has two names, and both of them are names of honor. Lucky kid. Time in Jotunheim flows a bit different from that of Midgard. In the time that they were gone, snow began to fall. The death of Balder was the beginning of Fimbulwinter, a great winter that would span 3 summers, after which Ragnarok would begin. Even Brock and Sindri are talking about it being the end times, or rather arguing about it. There are plenty of other things to do around the realms, but for now, they're going to take a cue from Jormungandr and get some rest. The two of them take the Mystic Gateway back to the Wildwoods, back to their pretty beaten-up home. This place has definitely seen better days, but repairs can wait. The two of them take to their beds and settle in for a good long rest. During his slumber, Kratos has a terrible dream. He dreams that years passed, and the crashing of lightning wakes him up. A storm unlike any other rages outside, and with it comes the threat of something never encountered before. Outside their home, a massive man clad in black with a long cloak covered in raven feathers stands waiting. Kratos demands to know who this intruder is, but the man throws back his cloak to reveal a weapon that he has heard of. Mjolnir. But now is not the time for that confrontation. Fimbulwinter will span 3 years. Kratos will ready Atreus and himself. Their training will be rigorous and unforgiving. It must be if they're to survive Ragnarok. There's so much that Atreus has to learn about combat, strategy, and his own godly powers. His father will ensure that his education is thorough. But before Fimbulwinter covers the land in ice and snow, they need to undo an evil of Odin. They need to find the Valkyries.